elite means to us somebody that has a continuous growth trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that that's you in a nutshell?
Oh, of course. Why not?
Yeah. Because I was looking at your pictures. How long? 12 years ago?
That's when I first started my journey. Yeah, it was about 10 years ago, but I have a picture of me looking not so good 12 years ago.
Right. Not so good. You weren't fit at the time. What led to that?
I think it was following the government guidelines. I'm very against the food pyramid and the government guidelines about what to eat and how to be healthy. And ever since I started going against them, my whole life changed, my body changed, my health changed, and I feel incredible ever since.
You're kidding me. 100. Well, let me ask you this. Okay, there's got to be some waiver there. You went 100% against their guidelines, or for the majority?
Almost, I would say 90% against the guidelines.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I roll in general. This is not arbitrary, right? So some of this nutrition stuff, it's easy to prove. You do it, you feel better, and you can go forward, right? You know the answer. It's not like some theoretical thing where, maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not. You see it. Yeah. Also, I thought about it over the 10 years, and I realized that there's a reason for why the guidelines are backwards. There's a reason why much of society is backwards, where you're like, you kind of question, people started questioning things after COVID. They're like, why are we, doing certain things? And it's because what's good for the people at the top is very often bad for the people at the bottom. This makes sense, right? It's just a rule of nature that if you are a pharaoh and you're trying to build some pyramids, right, your laws and rules and everything you do, it's going to be good for you. It's not going to be great for slaves building them. And so then it's also the opposite's true. If what's good for the people at the bottom isn't really great for the people at the top. If we all are thriving and wealthy and strong, that's not great for people trying to, make the rules.
Right.
So I don't know if this is sounding conspiracy oriented, but
and I don't think it is.
Well,
because you cannot deny biology. You can't, right? Wolf packs, there's the alpha male, right? A group of gorillas, there's the alpha, right? There's always some kind of leader and there's some kind of followers, no matter what. For the most part.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Even in ants, they have kings and queens.
Right? Yeah, bees, yeah, all that.
Yeah, so I really get what you're saying. How does it make you feel?
Well, once you kind of learn that, then you can know how to live your life better, right? So I focus mostly on the health stuff, food, fitness. And so once I realized that the government guidelines for food weren't for individual health, they're for feeding the masses or corporate interests or, these politicians making money for their buddies and eventually making money themselves, right? There's a whole scheme going on. And sometimes it's not really a conspiracy. It's not a scheme so much as just money driving people. Incentives drive people, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's sort of a law of nature that what's good for the people at the top, the few ruling people, is bad for the people at the bottom. It's just sort of a law of nature.
Yeah. Now, is that based off the 80-20 principle as well? Do you think that the people at the top, quote unquote, represent 20% of the population?
I think no. I think they represent like less than 1%. But there's different levels of the hierarchy
and categories.
Yeah, there's different roles people play. I think there's people at the very, very top that are sending down their wishes, and then there's a bunch of people. Maybe there is 20% that are carrying out the orders, and they are, say, the elites, or I hate using that term. Some people call them the elites class or whatever. But these are the people who are in government, and they are officials, and they are wealthy, and they're just doing what they think is best. But maybe my conspiracy side says maybe they're getting information handed down from the very top.
Yeah.
It's got real conspiracy oriented really quickly.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
We're okay with that.
Yeah.
So let's, any names come to mind when you think of the top?
Oh man. I think so. I've got a great friend that I grew up with in Hawaii that studied this for 18 years. And so he has let me know that there's a lot of distractions out there too.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh my God, Bill Gates is like going to ruin everything and buy our land, and he's just like this evil guy. You know, there's more to it. Or people, the Rockefellers, or the Rothschilds, right? But the Rockefellers and Rothschilds played a role, and they accumulated a lot of wealth in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and they did a lot, right? They even took the Federal Reserve, not just the Rockefellers, but there's J.P. Morgan Chase. There's all these big bankers and oil people, railroad people, steel people that actually took the monetary system away from the federal government. So the Federal Reserve is where our money comes from, is not actually part of the government. And this is open knowledge, and no one knows it, right? So this was, I think it was 1913 when they kind of took it away from the government. And so he started me there going down these rabbit holes. But one of the things he emphasized, it's not just the well-known thing. You can't just blame it all on, you know, it's just the Rothschilds and it's just the lizard people, stuff like that. It's just there's a lot of people, and you may not even know their names, and they're have just a lot of wealth and power, and they've never given it up. And then then once you see in that light how they control the media, they control the education system, you can see how everything happened where we are today, where the big corporations kind of run the world. Sick care industry, going back to health, the sick care system.
Sick care?
Sick care. I call it sick care. They call it health care. They call it health care. I don't think they're actually providing health. They're providing pills and procedures to make a lot of money.
Fair.
Right? And I mean, yes, it's not like these doctors are evil people, that they're playing their role and doing good work. But when you zoom out, they're in this system where it's just about pills and procedures and making money. And these are big businesses. Like hospitals are giant businesses that make so much money. Actually the 4 biggest industries in the U.S. right now are all in sick care industries. They're all insurance, medical sales, pills, procedures, all that type of stuff. Top $4 trillion industries. So it's just set up like that. And it used to be where doctors kept people well, right? And you'd get to the root cause of the problem. And if you were sick, I mean, you paid your doctor to keep you well. Now we pay doctors to give us Band-Aids, right? Quote, Band-Aids, like, here's your Ozempic. Instead of you having to eat better or exercise, we'll just give you this shot, and it'll, so it's just backwards. The incentives are misaligned. Everything makes sense once I started thinking about it differently, where I'm like, okay, you just have to realize that the government isn't there to save you, isn't there to help you be healthy and strong. It's there to just keep people in line and, you know, keep themselves happy and wealthy.
Do you get any fear when you think about going against the grain?
A little bit. So far so good, and I think I'm still a small fish, you know. But even Elon's going against the grain, and he's still okay. Well,
he's really smart.
I can't compare myself to Elon, but
you might be that smart. I'm saying that he might have figured out a way to, you know, work both sides of things. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe some people say that he's part of it. Well, and then we're getting the real tinfoil hats out. No, I'm just gonna make my series. So it's called Food Lies. It's a docuseries.
Yes,
and that's what I've been working on. So yeah, I'm not so much afraid. I think there's so much money to be made. They're not gonna care if I'm out there calling them out. You know.
Well, okay. 2 things come up. I'm gonna talk about the book by Napoleon Hill. Something about outwitting the devil.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, do you remember the last chapter that he wrote in there and saying, in, you know, X amount of years, if it's safe to republish this book, please add this last chapter. And it talked about the school systems. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he said that the school systems were created by the higher-ups to create more employees.
Yes. So I did read that book 2 years ago, and I do think that that's what happened. I read a book about 4 years ago when I first started my journey with the help of my friends, you know, that's way more knowledgeable about this. And he recommended this book by Charlotte Iserby. It's called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. And so it's like that chapter, but a huge book.
Yeah.
So you should check it out. But it basically chronicles the entire history. It's not so much
it's good.
Yeah, it's not so much a book. It's like just excerpts. She just went around. She wrote it, 20, 30 years ago, and went around and just looked up just factual statements. And it's not, a narrative. It's like excerpts from meetings or from different documents that just show that they made the school system just to churn out cogs in the machine.
I'm going to leave a note to Nico. Would you mind putting a link to that book? Would you mind? What's the book?
The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America.
Yeah, please put the
link. You
link.
can get a free PDF. Yeah, you can get online for free.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. And then the second thing I was going to talk about was your documentary. Nikolai Brzezinski, I think is his name. Okay, Brzezinski was a documentary on Netflix, and he's this guy that was touted to still to this day cure infantile brain cancer, which was deemed at one point incurable. Okay, he became so big, he's one-man show, maybe a couple of staff members, and this could happen to you. This is why I'm bringing this up. That could put out the whole cancer industry. American Cancer Association sued him several times, all the way to the Supreme Court level, literally in front of the 9 judges kind of thing, right? Well, what happens if the pressure gets to look like that for you with what you're doing? Are you ready for that?
That is interesting. Yeah. So I think what I have that's going to make me okay is that I'm not trying to like tear down because the cancer research industry and drug industry is a huge thing, and
It's been pretty big.
yeah.
Well, so is the food, though.
Well, but I'm not saying anything that people haven't already said. I'm not. Yeah, it's really a common sense approach. We've spent 7 years making this thing, and it's gotten more and more sort of ironclad, and like it's not extreme. It's not we're saying you have to do this crazy diet or you have to just never do this again or we're gonna burn down the whole food industry. It's more just, hey guys, there's a lot of profits to be made here. There's a lot of bad ingredients. There's a whole history of how we got here, so it's better to just eat whole foods.
Yeah.
One of the main messages. So if I'm just making a film saying eat whole foods, like what can you do? I mean, people have been making those forever, but they just seem, well, not forever, but Michael Pollan has made one of these. Like vegans make some of these, they just get it wrong. Michael Pollan is plant-based. His whole thing is eat food, not so much, mostly plants. And I'm like, well, I don't think that's right. And you don't want to just start. So he's saying, well, eat food. I guess he means eat real food. So that's correct. Not so much. No, I'm not going to just starve myself my whole life. I'm going to eat the correct foods, and I can eat as much as I want of them. That's what I found. And most people I know who eat whole foods and animal-based foods, right? We're having meat, fish, eggs. You do not have to count calories. You're not restricting. You don't want to restrict. If you're constantly dieting, you're going to screw up your metabolism.
Right.
You're going to screw up your thyroid. You're going to have more problems. So I don't believe in his second statement of his whole master thesis. And his third part is mostly plants. I don't believe in that at all. I believe that humans have eaten mainly meat and eggs and fish and animal-sourced calories, whether it be fat or butter or anything.
Big time.
So we've been eating, if you look at by calories, that all humans throughout history have eaten more animal foods, mostly animal foods by calories. And especially when we were the healthiest.
Yeah. This Michael guy, what work is he known for?
Michael Pollan, he made a couple documentaries. I think it was like Food Inc. or
he didn't do Game Changers, did he?
He didn't do Game Changers. That was some vegan people. That was more recent. Michael Pollan was from like 10, 15 years ago.
Okay.
And then he switched to psychedelics. So he made How to Change Your Mind. So that's on Netflix. It's about psychedelics. So he moved away from food. I don't remember. I don't think it was Food Inc. He just did a couple of the big food. And he wrote.
I remember Food Inc. It's got the cow, and then it's all these little pictures on the cow.
I may be wrong about Food Inc. He made a different one that was about. There's just some of these documentaries 15 years ago that were just about sort of generally plant-based whole foods.
Now Game Changers. Yeah. Okay, these documentaries can be freaking convincing. I watched Game Changers and I thought to myself, oh, well, I got to become a vegan now. It was that convincing, especially that thing where they did the blood test. Vegan blood versus non-vegan blood. One's cloudy and one's clear. It's like, dude, all right. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I made a documentary the same length as their documentary, debunking it. So I took a break from Food Lies. So this was, I guess, 3 years ago.
Yep.
And when it came out, and in 2 weeks, I got some crowdfunding together, and I made an hour and 35-minute film that I put on YouTube for free.
Cool.
That debunks, it's just called Game Changers Debunked. It's on my Food Lies channel, so you can find that if you're listening. But that experiment specifically, I know how they did that too. And just having cloudy blood, well, that just is a sign that there's just energy in your blood. Like if you eat a meal and you eat, if you have fat in your meal, which we've had for all of history, then there could be some circulating fat, right? It's just like triglycerides. It's just circulating energy that your body's using and then can put away for storage. And so what I found when I looked at that segment, they had a vegan burrito and then they had a meat burrito. The meat burrito had like 60% more calories, right? Just way more fat. It had guac. It had all this stuff in it. So it's just basically, if you're eating like a really small meal with 600 calories, and then you're eating like a 1,100 calorie burrito, that I mean, well, for one thing, it's a documentary. They can do whatever they want, right? They can like fake anything. They can fake anything. But if they did do it sort of legit, that's how they do it. Is they would give you when I did the math on it, and it was like say 600 calorie thing with not many carbs or fats, right? It's just like sort of a lot of fiber, and then so that you wouldn't have that much circulating energy in your blood, so it could be clear. And then if you have a huge meal, you would just have more energy in your blood. That doesn't mean anything. That just means you have a lot of calories. Yes, it's a good meal, and now you don't have to eat for 8 hours. That's what I do, right? I eat a meal. I don't have to eat for 8 hours. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm in perfect shape. I have perfect blood work, and
Brian, before we hopped on this recording, you told me that you want to be known by the world as the go-to person on the topic of how to eat, how we should actually eat. So we're going to call you the expert. All right, Mr. Expert, teach us.
All right, I love that. So it's actually very simple, and all animals eat what they're meant to eat, right? You go in nature, and the giraffe eats the leaves, and the zebra eats the grass, and the lion eats the zebra. Yeah, this is how the world works. And I've talked to great PhDs, scientists about this, and Dr. Michael Rose spent 40 years researching longevity and aging and fruit flies. A lot of amazing fruit fly research that people quote, famous stuff. He said the same thing. He's in the Food Lies series saying all organisms do best on the diet in which they evolved, right? And so I think paleo and these kind of ideas of going back in history get a bad rap sometimes, right? They're like, oh, you're on the paleo diet. Okay, that's some fad or that. Like, okay, well, maybe the actual paleo diet isn't correct because they have some sort of arbitrary rules of we can't eat anything that wasn't around in the paleo time, so therefore we can't have milk. And I think raw milk, like good grass-fed cows, raw milk from the ranch is amazing, right? And I think
You think.
I can't say anything. So this is part of being a good scientist is you never say
And you consider yourself a scientist.
I'm a mechanical engineer. So yes, I have a degree in hard science.
So socially you're a scientist, and metaphorically you're a scientist.
and I have a degree from UCLA that says I'm a scientist.
Very good.
An engineer. So that's why all this stuff I'm taking an engineering approach. So it's kind of the opposite of the medical sick care system. Yeah. Their approach is, okay, how do we mask the symptoms? If you have heartburn, we'll just give you some pill or, chew on a tablet and your heartburn will go away. I had a lot of heartburn, acid reflux back in the day. That's not engineering. That's not solving the problem. That's masking the symptoms. An engineer, you would look at what is the root cause of that. And I found that the root cause of that was processed foods, right? Generally eating the processed foods that have a bunch of added oils, seed oils, and refined grains, added sugars. Once I cut those out, I don't have acid reflux. I've never had heartburn since, right? So I had it all the time.
Makes sense.
10 years ago. Yeah. So and I was chewing on all the Tums and, these tablets. It was terrible. And then I just found I could clean up my diet. And that doesn't mean that I've never had a processed food in 10 years. I go out to eat with people, and then I still don't have acid reflux because I've fixed my body. And my system isn't constantly getting loaded with these processed foods. And so I just don't have that problem anymore. So we kind of got the tent of what to eat and the like raw milk. You asked, why do I know? I don't know anything because some people, I don't know anything for certain because there's some people who've told me. I have hundreds of thousands of people that follow me on Instagram, and I talk to a lot of them. I do a lot of DMing with them because I learn a lot from them. And most of them, 99%, are all about raw milk. This is incredible. This has changed my life. I feel so great. And there's the one person that DMs me, and they're like, I just don't do well with milk, even if it's raw and grass-fed. So that's why I say, I think raw milk is a perfectly good food, but some people still just say, I don't like dairy. It doesn't do good.
Yeah.
Right? So dairy.
That's good.
That's good. But generally, we're talking about paleo. So paleo excludes dairy. And paleo is a perfectly fine diet that I believe in. I believe in a lot of different diets, right? Because I don't want to have one diet. I call it, I'm in camp, no camp, where I'm not.
Place to be.
Yeah. Because, I was in different dietary camps where I was like, low carb is everything. And then like paleo is everything, like keto is everything. People just go on these, they are kind of trends, but a lot of them are rooted in the truth.
Yes.
And the truth, so this is what I'm building up to. The truth is a framework. It's not a specific truth. It's not like there's a one diet that you have to follow and that everyone is going to do well on. But there is a framework, and it isn't what people say. It isn't, there's balance. Because a lot of people use this stuff. They're like, there's no one diet, everything in moderation. And they like, no, that's not true either.
No.
Then you just end up with how I was eating the food. I was eating everything in moderation. I was eating healthy. I was not eating fast food.
And rarely in life is it ever that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I basically just followed the science, right? Like I actually just interviewed about 300 doctors and scientists by now about it. And it did go back to all organisms, all animals eat best on how they evolved. And so for humans, it's actually obvious. We didn't have processed foods. We didn't have all these oils and new, fake fats. We didn't have Crisco and vegetable oils. We didn't have
Canola
oil. We didn't have, just sacks of flour. We didn't have corn syrup. We didn't have preservatives. We didn't have food dyes. We didn't have soy lecithins. And
ounces and ounces of sugar.
Yeah, we didn't have
every bite.
No, we didn't have any of that. So it's kind of obvious, but we know we had whole foods, right? So if you're asked what to eat, it's definitely whole foods, but then we have to go from there because we can't just say whole foods in general.
Let's say I'm 5 years old and you're explaining what a whole food is.
So whole food is just basically something that is straight from nature. The easiest way to say, I say straight from nature. And it's close to nature. You can cook it. Yep. You can chop it up. That's technically processing, right? So it's not, processed foods are something that you can't create in a normal kitchen. That's one definition. The NOVA classification, which they use in Brazil and some places, is that ultra processed food is something that can't be made out of normal kitchen ingredients. So like I can't make Lucky Charms in my kitchen. Like I can't get extrude processed grains and fake marshmallow trash and put it together. But I can make sauerkraut in my kitchen. I can cut up some cabbage and I can put some salt and let it ferment.
Yeah.
Right? I can make cheese, right? You take the milk and you can strain it. You use like a cheesecloth and there's a whole process. And you can extract the whey from the curds and you can make cheese, right?
Yeah, I think I see my aunt do that up in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
With goats.
You could do it. Another easy way to think about diet is what did we do 100 years ago? If you just eat like we did 100 years ago, we don't have to go back to paleo. We could just be like, okay, yeah, we made cheese. They even made bread. They made real bread. They made bread.
Right, with a couple ingredients.
Yeah, sourdough, even better. It kind of gets out some of the bad things while it ferments.
That's right.
24, 48 hours sourdough. A lot of most actually, the sourdough in the store is fake. They just add like citric acid. They add something that tastes sour
to make it taste.
But it's not real sourdough. It's not aged. It's not fermented.
Bunch of bums, man.
So that's what. So processed foods are basic. There's 3 levels. It's basically there's whole foods.
Mm-hmm.
There's ultra processed foods, which people know. That's like candy bars and cotton candy, just pure trash. But then in the middle, there's a lot of processed foods that people don't realize are processed foods because they make a lot of health claims in the packaging. They're like, oh, it's a granola bar. It's like all natural granola bar.
No, this one's like candy.
No, it's a candy bar. Yeah, it's no good. It's
junk.
There's like, 20 ingredients. That is not a whole food.
If it tastes that freaking sweet, it can't be good for you.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's too good to be true. But there's a few things that are too good to be true a little bit. Like some fruit. Like I'm eating more fruit now. I'm eating some honey now. I'm changing my diet up. Before I was really afraid of eating too much sugar because you're right, because there's sugar in everything and it's insane. And it's corn syrup and it's packed with everything and there's all these other ingredients too. But then once you clean up your diet, you start eating whole foods only. You start getting rid of all of the seed oils, all of the like refined grains and just packaged foods. You can actually eat sweet things. You can have fruit. You can have some honey. I can have sweet potatoes. I can have, sweet potatoes with honey drizzled on it. I can have,
and it's going to taste
it tastes delicious.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not overpoweringly sweet. It's like, this is, and I went to Africa, part of my Food Lies series. We saw them. We got honey with these hunter-gatherers. We were with the Hadza.
Dang.
In Tanzania.
That's fun.
Yeah. And they went and we were on this hunt, this 8-hour hunt. We did not bring enough water, which was kind of crazy because these guys don't even need water. They'll like find a puddle and drink mud water and be done. They're good. And we were almost dying. Like a couple people were like
dying,
gonna pass out, like seeing black, like could barely walk, and we barely made it. But on this hunt, we found a tree and there was a hive and they made a little fire with the sticks, started smoking it out. They had an axe. They carry an axe with them. They have their bow and arrow, homemade bow and arrow. They have an axe. They trade for some little metal pieces. So they have metal tips on some of their arrows and they had an axe. Because the modern hunter-gatherers can trade with
how'd you meet these people?
Oh, it was actually our guy Draco. His ex set us up. She spent a year helping us go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice lady.
So she figured it out. Yeah. Luckily, I didn't have to do it. But you have to go like 3 to 4 levels down. First, you find like the first handler. Then you find like the tour guide. Then you find the handler. Then you find like the guy that knows the tribe. And then you find the tribe. So we, had an amazing experience. They're eating honey. We got to eat the fresh honey from the tree. You're chewing on the thing with all the wax.
How good was that?
It was great. Yeah. But there wasn't that much honey. You're eating a honeycomb, and it wasn't like it was just dripping with honey, and we just ate like, a whole can of honey. We ate a little bit of honey.
There's a lot of wax.
Yeah, a lot of wax. And it was, it's more of a treat. So I guess we're explaining what to eat. It's whole foods. It's sweets as a treat, right? It's not like every meal is honey. For them, that makes no sense.
No every now and then.
Every now and then. It's animal-based by calories. I'm not saying that you need to be carnivore. I know a lot of carnivore doctors, and these people are my friends. People have heard of Dr. Paul Saladino, Sean Baker, these type of guys. I've known them through my whole journey, actually. And I love them, but I just don't. Well, actually, Paul switched from carnivore to animal-based, including fruit and honey and raw milk, right? So there is a journey. People need to go on. Sean Baker's still on the only meat train, but I just don't really believe in that for multiple reasons. But so I think by calories, we should be focused more on animal foods. And I mean, people might want to know why. I don't know if it's of
course.
Yeah. It's because it's the opposite of what we've been told, right? People have been saying, eat less red meat, don't eat less fat,
eat crap, get sluggish.
They're like,
Go to the doctor,
eat cereal,
pay more money,
wake up and eat cereal. Yeah,
vicious cycle.
Exactly.
The fact that kids grow up eating cereal is just mind-boggling to me.
It's the worst food you can eat. It's just so funny that it's not funny, but it's like it makes sense because I figured out how we got there. We're talking about the food pyramid and all the corporate funding and all the reasons why we ended up with this, right? And a lot of it is the money and the subsidies. And the U.S., we have millions and millions of acres, and we're just growing corn, wheat, and soy. And at some point, we were trying to make the food pyramid, and it actually did have more whole foods in it. It was, meat and milk and fruits and vegetables, basically, and some bread, because we've had bread for 12,000 years. Not that it's the best food, it's not the worst food. It's a long story.
Fills you up.
Yeah,
Cheap.
we actually got shorter, and our brains got smaller, and we got more disease since 12,000 years ago, since we started relying on grains and bread. So that's in the archaeological record. You can really see. My good friend Dr. Bill Schindler studies this stuff forever. He says it's very obvious where you can see a pre-agricultural human remain, bigger brain, taller, less lesions on the bones where you can see the disease. So they're very healthy. They could tell they're very healthy. And then after agriculture, shorter, smaller brains, more disease.
Isn't it true that humans used to be massive?
I think we all were. We were all healthy and strong. And
considered
small.
Giants.
Uh-huh.
Is that right?
Well, that might be a whole nother thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we were giants. Now, I mean, if you're comparing to some populations that have an average height of 5'8", maybe we were giants back then. I think right now we still have people who are average height of 6'2" up in the north, or some of these African people, that Sudan, and even the Maasai. The Maasai eat mainly blood, meat, and milk.
Yeah.
And their average, I think it was like 6 foot, 6'1", right? The Americans about 5'10" average.
Yeah.
Some other countries it's like 5'8", 5'7" average. So yeah, we used to be more robust, taller, stronger, less disease until we had agriculture. So, okay, so I left off talking about the food pyramid, or the guidelines used to be more just meat, milk, fruits, vegetables.
At the base.
Yeah, well, they depend. So the first food pyramid, they made, well, wasn't before they made it into a pyramid. The pyramid came around really in 1980, and that was when it was 7 to 11 servings of grains on the bottom. Right, which is crazy. That's when it's like, oh, you eat breakfast cereal, like this is healthy. You want to get 7 to 11 servings of grains. So how that happened, I was telling the story of how we got there. It started more in the 50s and 60s when they started demonizing saturated fat. And so if saturated fat's bad, then that means that a whole bunch of processed grains must be good, because, we have to replace the animal foods and saturated fat with something. And so basically the story goes is they couldn't afford. They realized, part of the story is they realized they couldn't afford to feed the world. There's the first versions of food stamps, right? They had these programs for the lower socioeconomic class, and if they said that we should all be eating fresh meat and fresh milk and fresh fruits and vegetables, they would never have been able to do that. But we have millions and millions of acres of corn, wheat, and soy that we subsidize, and so they're like, well, what about these? And so this is the idea that all calories are the same, right? If you have this idea that's completely wrong, that a calorie is a calorie, then you could see that they're like, well, why not? We got this cheap stuff. We have millions and millions of acres of corn, wheat, and soy. Well, fill up on this, dummies. Get peons. Like, everyone just fill up on this. It's just about calories. And that's why I think we are where we are today, where we have 74% of the U.S. is obese, overweight, or obese.
What?
74% of the U.S. is overweight or obese.
That's insane.
Yes. And
sad.
And I don't remember the statistics on diabetes, but, huge amounts of diabetes and prediabetes.
For sure.
And I don't know, right? There's many factors, but from my research, all my doctors, scientists I've talked to, one of the main problems is going away from whole foods, demonizing meat, demonizing saturated fat, saying that all calories are the same. And when you say that, giving people, that means just go eat bread, go eat pasta, go eat cereal, that slowly causes all of these problems, obesity, diabetes. If you just eat the wrong things, the human body is pretty amazing. It's not going to just get diabetes overnight. or become obese overnight.
Yeah, like the people that drink soda for years. It is amazing that somebody can withstand drinking soda.
I mean, I grew up on some soda and cereal and low-fat products, and I was doing, and so it doesn't happen, but it happens slowly, and that's what happened to the U.S., and it's just a small change in the food you eat. So you go away from what we used to eat, have all these new processed foods move in. Even if you're doing it healthy, I'm not saying it's all because people went to McDonald's. I think it's because they followed the guidelines like I did and my family did, and we ate cereal and whole wheat pasta, and we avoided meat. We ate low-fat yogurt, low-fat milk. We did all these things, and it slowly killed us. Basically, I lost both my parents because of chronic disease, and I was on my way to chronic disease at 30 because I was doing the same thing, and I was overweight and on my way to prediabetes, and I had all these different problems like the acid reflux, the different inflammation, different problems and I was doing it correctly. I was not eating out much. I was always making my own food, right? I was doing things right. So that's why I'm so against these standard guidelines, this standard American way of eating.
I think we have to take a look at the context of the calorie, right? Yeah, because what's 500 calories worth of sugar going to do to somebody's body versus 500 calories of steak?
Absolutely. It's like the most obvious thing. 500 calories of donut or 500 calories of steak or shrimp. We're putting this in the series because 500 calories of, say, a donut has, it's really just one small donut. But 500 calories of shrimp, it's like 23 shrimp or something. It's crazy. And like, if I eat 23 shrimp, I'm going to be full. I mean, well, that's only fine. I'm not going to be full because I eat a lot. But
shrimp.
That's a lot of protein.
Yeah.
That's nutrients. That
good
is
stuff.
Good stuff. I'm going to feel great after that, and I'll be full for a while. If I eat one little 500-calorie donut, I'm going to feel terrible. I'm going to have a sugar high, then I'm going to have a sugar low.
Nap time.
I'm going to probably eat more in 2 hours because my blood sugar went up and then went down below baseline. That's what happens a lot. If you eat highly refined foods, your blood sugar rises fast and falls below baseline. Then you're hypoglycemic. So it's hyperglycemic is high, and then hypoglycemic means you're low. Dude. And so then you're hungry, right? These people with diabetes like have low blood sugar, and you need to give them orange juice or something. Yeah, that's because their blood sugar is dipping too low, and so people get hungry. So that's one of the reasons why people eat too much, right? No one wants to overeat. Yeah, so many people do, and it's just a slow process of making the wrong food decisions. And every day it's so slow, right? It's like, okay, well, I ate the breakfast cereal, and then I was starving at 10 a.m. I ate it at 8 a.m. Then at work, I'm starving, and then I'm like going to the break room, eating something else, right? You're on this constant cycle.
So let's talk a little bit more conspiracy here.
Okay.
Brian, so my buddy Matt was talking to me about how there's records that you can find online how JFK's assassination was planned by the United States government. Okay, that's one for you. The second thing, when it comes to food and what you're saying, do you think that the quote-unquote elite or higher-ups literally sit in a room and talk about, hey, how are we going to get people fat and sluggish?
Oh, man. I wish I knew. How
do you find out?
You do a lot of research, and I've been on this journey. Well, I say yes. I've been 10 years. Then I've been looking into the stuff you're talking about for 4 years only through my friend, right? My friend's got the 18-year head start. So he has a 14-year head start on me. And
I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Your friend.
Yeah.
How does he look into this stuff?
He does a lot of primary research. He reads books about lawyers from 1906, and he's just a real nerd. So he doesn't
nerdy.
He doesn't like go look at blogs about lizard people. He goes to the source. He'll be like, this guy Elihu Roots, he was like the attorney for, like John, Harvey, JP Morgan Chase, and then he did this, and then, he goes deep. So if you were to ask him, he might say that you are a little bit correct. I don't think there's a room where they sit in. I think it's more of there's a bunch of people at the very, very top that generally can drive things in certain directions
without actually saying it.
Yes, and they all know. They're like, well, they don't even have to say it. It's like, it's obvious if they create the sick care industry and they're making trillions of dollars. Like I said, the top 4 industries in the U.S. are these health care, sick care industries. If they just know, okay, if more people are more sick, we're going to make more money. So it's a little bit like you said. It's not that, oh man, we're like in the evil room with a little cat and we're like, we're going to make everyone fat and sick. I don't think there are evil people out there that, like, I don't think the CEO of Monsanto thinks he's evil. Even though we all probably think he's evil, he's poisoning the world and like having a monopoly over people's grains, and people in India are committing suicide because they can't pay for the patent on the, chemicals, right? But he just thinks that he's making a great product that helps people grow crops better.
Willful blindness.
Yeah. So I think there is something like that where it's not this little layer and everyone's in the same exact page and we're all like in cahoots and, buddy. I think it's generally there are people at the very, very top that can slowly push things in a direction that will give them more money and power. And they don't think they're evil. They think that we are the ruling class. We know what's better for people. We are smarter than everyone. We have made all the money. Someone's got to be the king. Someone's got to be the leader. That's just my thoughts.
All right. Well, let's ask you this. We got one more question here about the here and the now, and then we'll take a quick little intermission. What would you do to wave a magic wand and change this? What would be the answer to all this?
To use my Food Lies series as part of this in a selfish way, part of the magic wand would be get this 6-part series out so that people understand food, what to eat, the history of how we got here, why these guidelines are wrong, why we can simply eat real food, go to your farmer's market, go to your rancher, get some eggs, get some meat, and live better. If people had the message, if the people had all the information, so the magic wand, part of it is having people get the right information, right? So if they have the full story of why your doctor is wrong about cholesterol, because I think that the modern paradigm of cholesterol is kind of wrong, right? They're demonizing the animal foods. Oh, it raised your LDL. There's a lot more to it, right? So if people have the right information, because right now they're like, well, this dude on the internet's telling me to eat more meat, but my doctor, my cardiologist is telling me to avoid meat, right? So it's like we have a mismatch of information. So my magic wand is if we have the correct information, if more than just Food Lies, if we have a bunch of doctors and scientists that I know get their information out there and maybe there is some more to learn, right? And we learn more, then people can have the tools and the personal responsibility to make decisions for themselves and take responsibility for their own health. And I think that's how they become healthy and how we can change the world, as if everyone takes their health into their own hands, right? And makes the decisions to avoid processed foods mainly. And you can even use the 80-20 rule, right? You can, if people just 80-20 ate real food, animal foods, and, went to a party, had some, whatever's served.
Yeah. Moderation,
something like that. But if we went to like that 80-20, the world would be completely different. People, this hospital, some of these big sick care systems would go out of business. I mean, not that all hospitals will go out of business. Obviously, there's a time and place for hospitals.
Yeah.
But huge industries would go out of business that are reliant on statins or, these fake cures and fake Band-Aid solutions.
Dude, I can only imagine, without all these obese people with all these health issues, how that would shape things. Think about how much more productive, more happy people would be, how much less prescription drugs people would take for their mindset and all that. Yeah.
100%.
That would be the real game changer.
And I think we're kind of doing that. I think there's a group of people that are just doing that. And so it's not going to be the whole society. It's just going to be, there's going to be a group of us. And a lot of them are here in Austin. right? We're just saying no to all that, and we're going to create our own little sub-economy of healthy people that don't need prescription medications and aren't on antidepressants and are thriving.
Yeah. Start small, one foot in front of the other, right? Just like our parents used to teach us. For segment number 2, Brian, we're going to tap a little bit into your backstory, right? How you got to where you are today. This is like a little legacy project. Let's say you get great grandkids and they want to get to know you on another level. Well, this is where they can come to check that out. Stay tuned, folks.